You're listening to Mixing Mindsets. I'm Andrew Blank.
And I'm Eric Navrosky, and we hope you find some value out of these conversations about lifestyle, music, and more. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Today we are at 8 days a week hanging out with Paul Smith, the owner. And today we're going to be talking about adaptation. Paul.
Hello.
Thank you so much for
being on, man. We appreciate it.
Yeah,
it means a lot.
That's a great subject. I mean, I would have lots of opinions about adaptation and how it's affected my life.
Mm-hmm. So right from the get-go, Paul plays in a band called the Badleys. If you want to talk about as early as it goes in terms of like your beginnings in music, and then let's work our way toward adapting. So what inspired you to kind of get into music? You know, like what were your humble beginnings?
I actually started playing music, as a kid, playing piano, and then in middle school picked up the trombone and picked up a guitar also around the same time. And then as soon as I found rock music, that kind of ruined all the other like classical variations of instruments. I was definitely hooked, and it was one of those things where I would just try to find musicians to play with. I had like a band when I was a freshman in high school. Yeah. And then I finally joined a band of guys that had been out of high school for like 5 years.
Right.
And started playing with them as a guitar player. Mm-hmm. And that was my first foray into like playing in bars.
Mm-hmm. Right. I have to ask, what was the name of the group?
That band was called Defiance.
Defiance.
And it was
Nice. That's so
Defiance.
rock, dude.
Rock and roll.
Yep. And the guy that like got me into the band we're still really good friends and everything. Yeah. But I basically took a longer path to get to like the professional side of things. A lot of people will start in their teens or early 20s, and it took me till about age 26 to basically start doing it for real.
Yeah.
Writing songs, going out on the road, putting all your money back into pressing and mixing and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
So there was a constant like adaptation. I was working in Manhattan actually at a little commercial studio, and my buddy Brett called me and he's like, do you want to like quit your job and like join the band? Because we need a bass player. And I was a guitar player.
Yes.
And he said, I will play the bass and you can play guitar. He's like, no big deal.
Okay.
And I was much more of like, at that point, I was a heavy kind of guitar guy.
Right.
Yeah.
Much like yourself.
Yes.
Defiance.
And
so, Defiance. And I was just like, Brett, I think you should play guitar. Keep playing guitar and I will learn to play the bass.
Right.
And it was really hard. So like changing jobs, moving from New Jersey to PA back here where I actually had done my internship at the studio.
Okay.
Under Brett in 1988. It's a long time ago. And so there was like constant adaptation.
I was going to say that alone is a massive lifestyle adaptation.
Yeah. And then trying to adapt to like being in a band and listening to other people and playing for the song on an instrument that wasn't my native instrument. And it's like, bass has like 4 strings. Well, it does, but it's like, it can be the rhythm and the melody and nothing. And it can be the drums. It can be everything. So it took a long time to like find a groove with that. But, that's and we did like 3 independent records. So we were like kind of in this groove.
Yeah.
And then we got on a major label in the mid 90s. And once we were like on A&M Records, that was another big turning point. We're like, okay, you are going to go promote the record to radio stations across the country.
Right.
You're going to play, big festival shows to promote the record, blah, 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 blah. So we would do like these fly dates. Like the van would start in Chicago. We would tour, go to Chicago, and then the road crew would drive from Chicago to LA, and then we would fly around to all these different cities.
Jeez.
Denver, El Paso, Dallas, like all these cities to do, morning radio show, go to the record store, play, with whoever, bands. Promote.
Big band
so
promoting the big record.
That was like a big change for us as a band because we had previously controlled everything.
Right.
Yeah.
Then we had to like, okay, all these people are in charge. They're calling the shots. How is this going to go? So, and then by the time we had that really cool curve, got to do all this stuff, the record label got bought, like all the Geffen Records, Island Records.
It was like the big buyouts. I remember reading about this. Was roughly what year was this?
97, 98.
I was gonna say we were just young ones then. I remember reading about this, like the major label buyouts and switches and everything.
And
like
that dovetailed right into Napster. So not only is your major label going away, but then the stuff that you do put out, CDs were still selling, but it was one of those things
streamed.
where, is starting to get into streaming. And so I remember reading in 2001, Dave Lowry from, he had a hit song called Low. And he was writing about like how, he made more from one sale of a t-shirt.
Right.
Because that was in the beginning when things weren't even formatted. You still don't make any money, but
If
not
some things
from
haven't
streaming,
changed,
But it's if you're a musician, you're constantly adapting, constantly. And if you're like trying to get something going, or you have several projects you're doing, and you have a job, like your African American friends will call it code switching. Your black friends will call it code switching. So code switching, if you're black, you are code switching between talking, a business style of speaking, or this set of friends, or at home, or whatever. And musicians do that kind of like naturally, because they have to, like, who wants to go out and do something over and over and over until they get it right and tour till, they're blue in the face and get home at 4 a.m. Most people don't.
Exactly.
Most people would like to get home and make dinner and
exactly.
So you're always adapting. You're always, like everything from sleep deprivation to,
feel that.
Like, how can I work this into my schedule this week when I have to get projects done?
Yeah.
So, it's probably, I don't know. It's defined my whole life. I would rather have to adapt every single day to something than have one thing you do that doesn't change. Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what about when it comes to like my side of things? So like the recording, like we're obviously in your beautiful studio. So what did that look like back in the 90s?
I was going to say, it sounds like you went through an internal adaptation in order to get your way to the Badleys.
Yeah.
But then as during the beginnings of the band, you clearly were recording in a different manner.
Yeah.
When did you like super dive into like the recording side of things?
We did it right away because we did our first 2 records mostly in this space, in the studio.
In this studio.
So the very first record, we tracked the drums and the bass at Lenny Kravitz's studio in New Jersey. And then we did all the other dubs and mixed it here. Second record, we tracked everything here and then we mixed in New York. So, it was all on tape.
Right?
Yeah.
But the processes for us haven't really changed, other than it's like you can move quicker and you can drink more coffee.
Exactly.
You're not waiting for the tape to rewind.
Yeah.
But it's that for us the processes really haven't changed as much because we're still song oriented.
Yeah.
It's easier to get really cool sounds quickly these days if you know what you're doing, because there's so many tools to do it.
Exactly.
Everything from plugins to like to like the mic I'm talking into now is a Dave Peluso 47 FET. So like a Neumann 47 FET is $6,000.
Right.
And this was like $1,200.
Yeah.
So it's like all the manufacturers of equipment and everything. It's really, really neat.
Yeah.
But I don't know, other than that kind of thing, we're doing like the same kind of processes for production.
Yeah.
I find that interesting because it's like the adaptation changed on the external, but the internal, like the core of what it was essentially stayed the same. And
For sure.
I think
it's just the way to get to the end is a little different, but the end goal is still the end goal.
And you hope that you're in the process of it, you're doing all the things that we always talk about when we're like recording together or whatever is that beat cool? Should I, is that fill steady going into the chorus? Is the guitar part right? So like all those things could be at any point in time,
Yeah.
Um,
It's just like the energy aspect of it never changes.
Right,
Because the
right.
like vibe and energy always need to be at the heart of everything that's done, even though the body isn't exactly what it was 20, 30 years ago.
Right, yeah. I just was watching a video with Steve Lukather,
Mhm.
and like he and the Toto guys recorded most things
Yes.
in the late 70s and 80s that were like hit, like everything from like Michael McDonald and Christopher Cross to Michael Jackson and the Tubes and all this kind of stuff. And he
Right.
was talking about this one time. He's like, I think the guy was asking him what kind of things were frustrating for you other than like schedules and personalities and that kind of stuff.
Right.
But like he's like on tape, he's like, Steve Lukather's a monster player, but if he did like a bend at the end of a solo that was a little flat or he didn't like it, he'd like, can we just do one more? And they're like, nope, that was
Yeah.
nope,
That
that's
was
it.
Yeah.
So then he has to leave the studio being like,
Yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah.
could have made that a little better, but
Right.
to our ears, it's just like, I don't know, that's legendary.
Exactly.
Whatever. But yeah, I don't know. All the processes are the same. It's just, more convenient.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you find was the hardest thing to adapt to? Like in general, like was it that move from, you said hey, quit your job and do that, or like was it something else?
That was definitely the first big one where it wasn't exactly the move,
Mhm.
but like trying to build a band with part-time jobs. So like everybody
Right.
had gone to college.
Yeah.
Brett had graduated from Bucknell like with honors with an economics degree,
Yeah.
and we're like working for a temp agency
Yeah.
because we want to bail at any time
Yep.
and get 4 gigs in a row and go to Pittsburgh, and
You wanted that flexibility because
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
the band was the
So
dream.
that
Yeah.
that's the biggest hurdle. That was the biggest hurdle.
Mhm.
Like years later, I mean, I spent over a decade working at Susquehanna University teaching recording
Right.
Yeah.
and doing events and that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
And now I can't believe that I'm here every day. This is better.
Yes.
This is better. So I finally, there's lots of adapting you have to do by the time you get to where you're like really comfortable,
Yeah.
Hmm.
So what about balancing family life? Because so as we know you have a family. Andrew
Yep.
his just started his family, and I'm right behind him. So
Yep. Yeah. When we were playing a lot and touring, my wife did, we did the bulk of our major stuff before we had kids.
Yes.
yeah.
But that said, I was then working in a studio and still playing.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I was always the guy that was, the dad who was just flexible, could go to daycare, could go to swimming lessons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could do all that stuff. So that was always a priority for us.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have a work balance life, unless like if you're nuts to begin with, if you're a musician.
Yes. I
And you have to
agree
adapt
there.
to normal
There-
people, right? Normal senses of
I've
humor
never
and
agreed with the
everything.
statement anymore.
But there are people that are like really hard on the spectrum of like either it's ambition or it's they're just driven, or they can't not do it 24/7, or their brain is just filled up with this thing they
Yeah.
have to do 24/7.
Right.
And so a lot of other things fall by the wayside.
Yeah.
Normal relationships. We're a lot more kind of like middle of the road in terms of like we kind of want that normalcy and that, being home kind of feeling.
Yes.
Because you have one go around and you may as well make
Yep.
all that other stuff successful.
Oh yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
know-
think that's super important.
Correlating that with like the changing music industry. I mean, I feel like you were the band was embodied in this time where it was like you had to tour, you had to sell the records in order to like move the units and for people to hear the music.
Mhm.
I feel like you've definitely adapted to the changing times and kind of watched everything transition to digital, where it's now like anyone could start a band and put things out and potentially get a worldwide reach in a matter of like a week if they wanted to.
Mhm.
So
It was that's probably the number one thing now for people, from that grew up, that are older than me
Mhm.
in their 60s and us in our 50s.
yeah.
Mhm.
There are a lot of like complaints about the new way of doing things,
Right.
but largely everybody that I know and what I think is that it's the most wonderful thing in the world. It's a big equalizer.
Yes.
Yeah.
And no, we're not selling plastic as much, and there's
Right.
so many ways to split up selling plastic.
Yes.
Vinyl, CDs, tape, whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's very lucrative, But at the same time, good is good, and eventually does kind of rise up, whether it's just a popular thing on YouTube or somebody does get discovered for great songs.
Right.
Yeah.
The broken piece right now is the filter system at record labels. If there's only like 3 labels and they own everything.
Essentially, yes.
And so because of the structure not being this kind of splitting the plastic money,
Right.
Yeah.
there's not tons of investment into like seasoned professionals that understand music. Like everybody's seen like Rick Rubin.
Yeah.
And what a guru he is for taste. He's a tastemaker.
Yes.
And he
Huge
knows
inspiration
what
for me.
is
Yeah.
good, right? So with any kind of genre, he just knows how
Yeah.
it feels.
It's just energy and vibe.
And
it
that
just worked.
needs to happen at each, that needs to be part of the filter system. And it's
Right.
usually not. It's just like, I don't know what's going to sell, what's popular.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Because now it's like
that's okay. That was
chasing the
always
trends.
there.
Yeah.
Right. That was always there, but the filter system is broken in the majors, to some degree.
I want to be I want to believe that is going to triumph over like over the trendy stuff. Like I want to believe that like the people who have a genuine talent for it, a genuine love, are excellent songwriters, are really the people who are going to create like the lifetime career like out of it. And like there's another producer, engineer, his name is Will Yip, that we really like. He works at a Studio 4 in Coshocton, PA, and he did some unbelievable records, but he on his interviews talks about it. He goes, the song is king. And that's
all there
coming from a
is.
guy who I think makes unbelievably phenomenal
who
mixes.
has ever inspired me has used that phrase.
Yeah, and he goes, but
Song
really,
is king and will prevail.
yeah, but really, the song is king, and I think it's very respectable to look at someone like that who clearly has an ability with mixing, who clearly has a drive to do better, and still thinks, because it's so easy to just be like, oh, well, the song is king, and I'm the engineer, so like, well, if it lacks here and it lacks there, like whatever, who cares, because the song is king. So like I really respect him that he thinks like, okay, the song is king, but I'm still gonna do like my utmost best at this. And I think we need more personalities like that rather than just being like, oh, like it's a shotgun, let's just see what sticks kind of deal, And I think that might die. I think that trend might die. I really hope that trend dies.
You've ranted about this numerous times.
I have. And I really truthfully, wholeheartedly believe that the TikTok business plan, we'll call it, will eventually die. and the things that are really going to make it as their long-term careers are the people who are passionate, who are driven, who truthfully care about the craft. I hope. and have the life experiences. It's going to get weirder and weirder that have the life experiences to draw from. So like if you're a really talented person that lives inside of a box, you're probably, I don't know what you're going to write about. I
was just going to ask something like correlating to that, like you've been on the road, you've seen it. That doesn't necessarily have to be the business model anymore.
It does. Right. It doesn't. And I think that, if you have like a really talented person that's always kind of been in their head and on their phone and gaming and that kind of stuff, it's different than you've been out there making friends and doing.
Yeah,
and I still think that happens quite a bit where people connect and then they can write about whatever. But I think that's going to be a problem too, because it's, people think they want to make a song. Like you said, the TikTok model is, well, there's beats and there's melody and whatever, you can do loops and anything you want and Apple Logic or whatever. And that's not a song. I mean,
like
song
you're
that
missing genuine experience.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like
so it has to come from somewhere it touches people's hearts because they have a shared experience.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. So
That's
I'm with you. It's
I think that's missing, and I don't think that that's longevity. I really don't. I think that's kind of the trendy thing now. Then eventually it'll kind of die out, and I really think that the genuine experience and songwriting is really what's going to last.
You know, I don't mean to undermine any of the TikTokers or anything like that, but I have to ask in terms of, you know, for someone who's been in it for quite some time now, did you at some point like notice like an oversaturation of musicians? Like did at some point did it just surge and suddenly everyone can play guitar, can play guitar like
That-
but like you know what I'm saying? Like
That really didn't happen because all of the surge of people making whatever music expression thing
yeah.
at home in the last, I would say, like 10 years, there wasn't the amount of places to play that there
Right.
used to be.
Yes.
And so it didn't seem like and playing guitar is really hard.
Right.
You know, you have to
Yes.
really practice and have a talent
Oh,
for it,
100%,
right? You know?
yeah.
And so I don't think there was kind of like a surge of like the band thing, but there was a surge of like content.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but it was content that could easily be now nothing against like
Forgotten.
Billie Eilish and her brother.
Right.
They're in the genius level.
Yes.
And it happens to be on a laptop in a bedroom with one mic.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
Now, just because that is the fact doesn't mean you can do it. Like,
Exactly.
you
It
know,
doesn't
that
mean
they're
there's going to
still
be 1,000 of them.
wildly
There's-
talented.
Yeah.
And she like kind of lived in her bedroom or whatever and not tons of world experience and writes about all these emotions.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So that's, again, it's the songs.
Exactly.
But yeah, guitar wise and like, yeah, bands, we've been lamenting
Mhm.
like great breakthrough bands.
Right.
You know, you can name like 10 bands,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, yeah, but you know, I'm with you guys in terms of what people discover. Like, you know, if you would say, well, you know, what kids discover about rock music has all this energy.
Mhm.
And that's really attractive.
Yeah.
You know,
100%. It's
in
just-
your teens. And the guitar is like a thing. And
Exactly.
amps are loud and drums are loud. So it's never going to go away. I
Mhm.
mean, no matter
Yeah.
what kind of crazy AI tools
yeah.
will come up and are here, it's really visceral to like express yourself like that.
Oh yeah.
Agreed.
So
Yeah. Natural. Yeah.
Yep.
I love that.
I love that too.
And I stand by that no matter what. I have to. Like if I didn't think that was the future, like it would be so difficult to
yeah,
kind of push on. I think right now is we like as later 20s, almost early 30s are trying to adapt to like whatever business model is going to continue like our careers.
right.
And then I'm hoping that I can adapt to it, use it, and then watch it die, and then do the next thing.
I was gonna
You
say,
know?
it's just very
Right.
interesting from at least my perspective through. I'm 28, so like
Yeah.
through my eyes, it feels like there was this like 80s 90s thing in terms of like, okay, you're gonna start your music, you're gonna grow an audience doing X, X, and X. Like
Mhm.
you're just gonna do that.
Mhm.
These are the things you do, and that's gonna get you from point A to point B.
Mhm.
Now it suddenly feels like there's point A, point B, point C, point D, and then suddenly like next week there's gonna be point E, and then a month after that point F shows up. It just feels like it's suddenly at some point like it just the business model just took off and is constantly like, okay, this is new, this is new, this is new, this is trendy now.
You
We're
gotta
doing
do
this now.
and then you have to do this, and
You're,
then you
you're
gotta do this, and
swerving
you gotta
every
do that.
now and then, but
what my biggest hope is
Mhm.
in this whole ball of creativity
Yeah.
is that we're experiencing weirdness because of the technology.
yes.
So everybody carries around a $900 computer
Mhm.
Yeah.
that they just answer, you know,
Exactly.
and all of the weird things that come along with that and the tools that you have inside your computer and everything.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that is really kind of a growing pain with the technology because
Mhm.
you don't have to play the guitar.
Exactly.
Like nobody ever said the guitar was the best thing ever.
Mhm.
Now, like people that grew up with it think it is.
Yes.
But like again, if you wrote a great song and it was on the instrument that
Right.
you were
Yeah.
touching or whatever,
Mhm.
that's great too. And people are going. I mean, it will get really weird, and there'll be dinosaurs
Right.
that will be like, you know, I don't get that at all. But
Yes.
that doesn't mean it's not good.
Yes.
So, you know, that said, we're kind of circling back to
No,
you
exactly.
know, the realization that it is the song and production, performance, and experience.
See, it's funny. I was gonna say, yeah, we're gonna title it Adaptation, but it's funny how the core message is
The core
about
message always kind of comes back.
the core message is about believing what you believe is true, and just like kind of shielding yourself from the external world as it's constantly changing around you.
Yeah.
And like kind of holding on to the hope that the song is king. It's gonna stay king forever, and everything else is just.
And you could adapt
BS.
to the method, but the core is like you said, the same. Yeah. No, that's great, and that's good timing because we're basically wrapping up.
We're wrapping it up.
But I know they go by so fast.
They really
Yeah.
But okay, so we are at Paul Smith's studio 8 days a week, which is what town are we in?
This is Northumberland,
Northumberland, PA.
Yeah.
So if anybody wants to check it out, it's a 6-spot.
check it out. Reach out. Paul's a great guy to work with.
Yeah, I've recorded here before.
I've
Andrew's
recorded here before.
It's fun. I mean, we all just want to be in our own musical heads when we come to a place like this.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, your happy place is your studio.
Oh, I love it.
Like it's like you want it to be. That's not the other part of life.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's my goal here.
Just a creative space
love
where
it.
you
Thank
can
you
walk
for-
in and change everything. Yeah.
Thank you for coming over and doing this. This is awesome.
Thank you
This
for
was
I
being
love
here.
talking about this stuff.
Yeah.
This was wonderful.
Thank you for adapting with us.
Absolutely. And with that, we will hit the space bar and we're out.
Peace.
Peace.